कृष्ण को गोपिया शाम कंद राधा कुंड की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवदीप धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, द्वारका धाम की जय, स्वामी भक्तवृंद की जय, all glories to God. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. Hare Krishna Maharaj, you're welcome. We can start, Maharaj.
All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, methinks we're coming up to chapter 5, right?
Yes, Maharaj.
And that's the end of the lesson, I think. It's a very important chapter, like all the chapters are. The cause of all causes. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desu Tarani. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namah. Namo Mahavadhanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tushe Namaha. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishadi Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya. So all these lesson plans begin with the preliminary self-study. Now we already read these verses that are recommended. So let's go one by one and take one preliminary self-study, and starting with Tamal Krishna, and you answer the question. If you want to go and actually look at the verses, very good. All right. What makes Narada wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than Lord Brahma? Can you go for it? Haribol?
Hare Krishna.
Somebody please take it up.
Okay. The question is, what makes Narada wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than Brahma? According to the verse, it is said that one should not blindly follow or accept a spiritual master without first clarifying or verifying that that person is actually what is present. In other words, blind following is discouraged in Vedic culture.
Why did he get the realization that there's somebody more powerful than him, than Brahma? You see? I gave an example of it.
Because Narada Muni was initially thinking that Lord Brahma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His initial understanding is that Lord Brahma is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, but then looking at the personality of Lord Brahma, so a doubt arising in his mind, and he was wondering, could Lord Brahma be the supreme person or some other person is superior to him?
Yeah. So the first two verses, 5 and 6, is glorifying Lord Brahma as supreme. But he thinks, he sees you doing austerities even though you're so powerful, so that makes him think there must be somebody more powerful than Brahma, right? And examples given like a young boy, will naturally think his father's all powerful. But then as he grows older, he sees that the father has to go to work every day and answer the call of, somebody else. Then there's a whole story about the boy that goes looking, He finds the father's boss, but he has to pay taxes, and then he finds the king, and then finally the king is worshiping Krishna, and then he goes and surrenders to the temple. Okay, so that's an important point. We all realize, and we should not think we're all powerful when we realize how little power we have, right? Maya can make us think I'm the doer. We may get in a position where people are submissive to us, or, we're more powerful and we can control our children or our wife or our employees or our students and temple devotees. But we have to realize we're not very powerful. All right, good enough. What's the next one?
Maharaj, I have a question in that point. Another Muni's doubt arises because he saw Lord Brahma performing austerity and meditating on someone. But when we look at Krishna's pastimes, when Krishna appeared in his Lila as Krishna in Vrindavan, when he was in Dwarka, where he was in the grafter performing his pastime as a householder, he will also wake up in the morning and perform austerity, worship, and then regular meditation. So someone could then think maybe Krishna also is having somebody superior to him. How do we understand that?
Well, Krishna didn't do austerities, he did the rituals. Then he meditated on himself. It's very clearly stated he meditated on himself. And so that's a big difference. I had experienced the first time I heard of Krishna, actually, it was a yoga teacher, and he said how Krishna meditated on himself. So he was saying, so we should follow the example of Lord Krishna, and we should meditate on ourselves.
What a wrong conclusion.
And he gave the mantra, Soham Asmi, I am that, you know. So this is how the Maya body is twisted around. But Krishna was meditating on himself. You know, that's the point. Not meditating on some other living entity, not trying to get power from someone else. But he was setting the example. Like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if I did not work, then everyone would cease to work. So all right, is that cleared up?
Yes,
Clear,
Maharaj.
Maharaj. Thank you very much.
So you should not meditate on yourself. You should meditate on Krishna. You should follow Krishna's example and meditate on Krishna. Because there's no one else for him to meditate on. He's the supreme. Right. But this is how it gets twisted. Okay, this one I think everyone can tell. Who would like to volunteer for this one? The frog in the well. I don't think you need the book for this one, I hope.
Madhvan Prabhu, can you try?
Yes, I can try. Another frog in the well, just like Maharaja said, somebody who has not traveled, maybe it's in Nigeria or let's say Oyo State, but not until the president of the country is around, then he realized that there's still someone more superior. So a frog who has never left a well will be thinking, so he could not imagine how vast an ocean is. So when they tell him, he's speculating, is it 10 times the size of the well? 100 times? Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, I'm there.
I think that my explanation is it enough, Maharaj?
What's that?
The frog in the well, the logic.
Yeah.
I said
So
it's very narrow-minded. Narrow-mindedness.
yeah, so Prabhupada compares that to the scientists who think they can understand the universe compared to their little whatever they can perceive, you know, because our ability to perceive is very small compared to everything. So, and this is not a story like just from Prabhupada. It's told in many different countries. Give this example in their, you know, their not fables, but what are they? You know, they're, anyway, it's there, and I hear it many times. So, is it twice as big as my well, or is it two? You know, and then he puffed. The first time the frog is blowing up his big belly, and he finally just explodes. You know, is it this big? Is it this big? And Prabhupada compares that to the scientists trying to understand Krishna by, you know, compared to what they can actually see and perceive with their gross senses, which is not very much. You know. Very good. Okay, what about number 3? Who's next, Ali?
Maharaj.
This is a very scientific chapter.
The question,
what is that? Verse 11.
Krishna is talking about his own spiritual effulgence there, and how it permeates the whole of the creation.
Swa means your own. Like we have Swadharma, that's our Dharma. Swa means your own. So Swarochika is translated by his own effulgence. So Brahma is speaking. This is Brahma is explaining, about Krishna after Narada understood. Somebody read the verse then, verse 11.
Can I read, Maharaj?
Yeah.
Okay. It says that I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence, known as the Brahma Jyoti. Just as when the sun manifests his fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. Purport. Lord Brahmaji said to Narada that his impression that Brahma was not the supreme authority in the creation was correct. Sometimes less intelligent men have the foolish impression that Brahma is the cause of all causes. But Narada wanted to clear the matter by the statement of Brahmaji. The supreme authority in the universe, as the decision of the Supreme Court of a state is final. Similarly, the judgment of Brahmaji, the supreme authority in the universe, is final in the Vedic process of acquiring knowledge. As we have already affirmed in the previous verse, Naradaji was a liberated soul. Therefore, he was not one of the less intelligent men who accept a false god or gods in their own ways. He represented himself as less intelligent and yet intelligently presented a doubt to be cleared by the supreme authority so that the uninformed might take note of it and be rightly informed about the intricacies of the creation and the creator.
Okay, so of course, what scientists even understand the sun is the source of, the energy in the universe. Sun is the Brahma Jyoti, a little bit of the Brahma Jyoti coming into this universe. And everything is based on that Brahma Jyoti. So Brahma just organizes everything somehow or other. All right, that's a pretty simple one, isn't it? By Krishna's effulgence is how Brahma creates everything. In other words, he's not taking credit for himself. It's not like Hiranyakashipu. When Prahlad told him that there was a superior entity, then he became so angry. And no, I'm supreme, there's nobody else. So all the influential planets, the sun, the moon, the fire, everything is coming from the Brahma Jyoti. The electricity, Prabhupada would say electricity. Sometimes people ask why there's no electricity in the spiritual world, but because here electricities are, so important to us, and it's the source of all the light and power. So, electricity is just heat, fire. So it's one of the elements. All right. Okay, you're doing good. Now, what's the next one? It's a tricky one. So who would like to take this one? This one will require a little more work. I can look things up quick, so I'm going to just go to this first canto, chapter 7, text 4 and 5.
It says that thus he feels his mind perfectly engaging in it by linking it in devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. And text number 5 says,
quote 5 also.
Okay, it says that due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material measures.
Right. All right. Then how does that compare to the one that's mentioned here in chapter 2, canto 2, chapter 5, verse 3, right?
Yeah, and that is giving this example of a walnut, I think. It says, my dear father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, or whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe is within your grip, just like a walnut.
Okay, who would like to take that one on? Just say something. It's an interesting verse for me. So what's the question? Compare the description of the diluting energy. So make a shot at it, don't worry, you know.
I think if I can understand Maharaj, I think Brahma is explaining because as the direct representative of the Lord and secondary creator, proper use an example in the purport of the text number 3, that just like a manager is supposed to know the intention of the owner or director, so Lord Brahma, he knows what the intentions of the Lord is, past, present, and what he intends to do in the future.
Right. Now, so it says he's holding everything in his hand, just like you can hold a walnut. Walnuts are not very big. You have walnuts in your country, right? We have nuts in the West, which are called walnuts that are different, but still it's not very big. Anyone can hold in his hand. Now, there's a Christian song I remember when I was in high school hearing this, and made me think really deeply. I'm just going to play it for you because it's interesting. You might have heard it, they sing it in church.
Got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world In his hands, he's got the whole world. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got you and me, sister. In his hands, he's got you and me, brother. In his hands, he's got you and me, sister. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the little tiny baby. In his hands, he's got the little tiny baby. In his hands, he's got the little tiny baby. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got all of us here. In his hands, he's got all of us here. In his hands, he's got all of us here. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
So anyway, I thought that was, I just, when I read this verse, I remembered that song. So that's just a tiny understanding of Krishna, actually, because the whole world is nothing compared to the whole universe. But, you know, for us sitting here to think even the whole world, that's inconceivable. But Krishna's, it's not even in his hands. It's just, you know, it's such a tiny thing for him, the entire material creation. But we should understand that. That's why Nard is asking all these questions. That's why Brick is asking all these questions, so that we can get some understanding of, you know, what Allah Akbar really means and what God is great really means. You know, but what's really great is the loving ecstasies, the loving propensities of God, not just his power and control. That's a very secondary thing for Krishna. All right, another good one, Kala. At what point does Kala manifest? Who's going to take that one?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah, go for it.
Kala, which is time. After the material creation, that is the Mahatma, after it takes place, then after that, then time Kala manifested, and after time, by nature, activities takes place.
Right. After the Karanarvanamapshaya Vishnu, then there's Mahatattva. That's all of mature energy, and then time comes. And then what happens when time comes? Anybody? What does time do then?
Matter, time Kala, its role is to, it manifests and, how do I explain this?
Yeah, it makes things happen.
It makes it happen, yeah. It's the cause of every activity and the consumer of every activity.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
So after the manifestation of time, then activities started happening. Things started happening in the material world. Then time governs all the activities. Then we also have the three modes of material nature, which governs all the activities performed in the material world.
So we can say that maybe time is the manifest is the cause of the manifestation of all activities.
Yes.
Right. And that's Krishna. The most powerful force in the material universe is time. And that's Krishna. Time is, nobody can stop time. Nobody can avoid the influence of time, even the big mountains. Right? So something to think about. Time I am. So that agitates the three modes of material nature, time, and then all the different activities start to happen. Therefore, we're eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and trying to avoid death, trying to stay alive, and we're being chased by time. Except for a devotee, time doesn't affect him. In the spiritual world, time is absent by its. Okay, and what is tanmatra? There's some interesting terms, you know, if you're trying to impress people. What is tanmatra? Somebody can get there, verse 25, quick.
Yeah, tanmatra. From the darkness of false. Prabhupada said, how did the Prabhupada use the word? I think this tam mantra means the sound. Prabhupada said in the purport. Okay, let me show it to everyone.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting purport. You know, if you have to preach to college students or something, these are the kind of things that are very important. So read off the purport. It's not such a long one.
Okay. Translation: from the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the scene. Purport. The five elements, namely the sky, air, fire, water, and earth, are all but different qualities of the darkness of false ego. This means that the false ego, in the sum total form of Mahat Tattva, is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. And due to this false ego of lording it over the material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living entity. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material element as the enjoyer, though the background is the Supreme Lord. Actually, save and except the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer, but the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. This is the origin of false ego. When the bewildered living being desires this, the shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. It is said that first the Tan mantra sound is created, and then the sky. And in this verse, it is confirmed that actually it is so, but sound is the subtle form of the sky. And the distinction is like that between the seer and the seen. The sound is the representation of the actual object. As the sound produced, speaking of the object gives an idea of the description of the object. Therefore, sound is the subtle characteristics of the object. Similarly, sound representation of the Lord in terms of his characteristics is the complete form of the Lord, as when seen by Vasudeva and Maharaj Dasarat, the father of Lord Krishna and Lord Ram. The sound representation of the Lord is non different from the Lord himself because in sound are absolute knowledge. Lord Chaitanya has instructed us that in the holy name of the Lord, as sound representation of the Lord, all the potencies of the Lord are invested. Thus, one can immediately enjoy the association of the Lord by the pure vibration of the sound representation of his holy name. And the concept of the Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. A pure devotee, therefore, is not aloof from the Lord, even for a moment. The holy name of the Lord, as recommended in the Sutra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by the devotee aspiring to be constantly in touch with the Lord. One who is thus able to associate with the Lord is sure to be delivered from the darkness of created world, which is a product of false ego. Tasmas tamasi ma jyoti kama. Hare Krishna. Does it matter?
Yeah, comment?
Actually, reading this section of the Bhagavatam, it's just becomes more clearer when Krishna is said to be the cause of all causes, because how he permeates everything by his different energies is elaborately explained here in this verse, because we can see as when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked about chanting the holy name and connecting automatically with Krishna by just chanting his name, is elaborately explained here, because it clearly explains how Krishna is manifested in his holy name. That's my understanding. Krishna, for who you want to make some comments?
Anyway, false ego is very important, right? What is the meaning of false ego?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Meaning of false ego, when we think we are this body, and we are not this body, we are spirit soul.
Basically, that's right. Ahankara. That means I am this body. So that's a problem. The hardest thing, the most subtle element, mind intelligence and false ego. So, it's not so hard to give up the gross things, meat eating, gambling, sex life, but to really give up the false ego and all our idea of identifying ourselves as something other than a servant of Krishna, that takes time. And that takes mercy. Only by the cause of mercy when we beg the Lord, please help me. All right, good. You see how much, but just by reading the Bhagavatam, it really so purifying. Okay, and what Krishna considers very important, the modes of nature, 2 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, very much dedicated to that. Describe the transformations of the modes of ignorance, goodness, and passion. And that goes over many verses. So who will take that one up? That's serious. Yadana, he's a scholar.
Krishna.
Yeah. So describe the, like it says there, the transformations of the modes of ignorance, goodness, and passion. Verse 25 to 31.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can go ahead.
Yes.
The transformation of the mode of ignorance to passion to goodness by step.
Maybe you just want to read the verses and then you can work it out. We just read 25.
Yeah. Can we read it? 26. Yeah. Translations. Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice as previously. It also has form and touch, and is also full of sound. And water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous and, as previously, becomes qualitative full of juice, touch, sound, and form, respectively. The purport. The whole process of creation is an act of gradual evolution and development from one element to another, reaching up to the variegatedness of the earth as so many trees, plants, mountains, rivers, reptiles, birds, animals, and varieties of human beings. The quality of sense perception is also evolutionary, namely generated from sound, then touch, and from touch to form. Taste and odor are also generated along with the gradual development of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. They are all mutually the cause and effect of one another, but the original cause is the Lord himself in plenary portion, as Mark Vishnu, lying in the causal water of the Maha Tattva. As such, Lord Krishna is described in Brahma Samhita as the cause of all causes, and this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita as follows. Aham sabasya prabhu mata sabam prabhatate iti matva bhajante maham buddha baba samamvitaha. The qualities of sense perception are fully represented in the earth, and they are manifested in other elements to a lesser extent. In the sky, there is sound only, whereas in the air, there is sound and touch. In the fire, there is sound, touch, and shape. And in the water, there is taste also, along with the other perceptions, namely sound, touch, shape, etc. In the earth, however, there are all the above-mentioned qualities with an extra development of odor also. Therefore, on the earth, there is a full display of variegatedness of life, which is originally started with the basic principle of air. Diseases of the body takes place due to derangement of air within the earthly body of the living being. Mental diseases results from the special derangement of the air within the body, and as such, the yogic exercise is especially beneficial to keep the air in order so that diseases of the body become almost nil by such exercises. And when properly done, the duration of life also increases, and one can have control over death also by such practices. A perfect yogi can have command over death and quit the body at the right moment when he is competent to transfer himself to a suitable planet. The Bhakti yogi, however, surpasses all the yogis because by dint of his devotional service, he is promoted to the region beyond the material sky, and is placed in one of the planets in the spiritual sky by the supreme will of the Lord, the controller of everything. Hare Krishna.
Is that all the way through? It says it goes to 31, right?
Okay, yeah, I guess it's one. Do I go to 30 also?
Yeah, continue through 31, then explain it.
Okay. 30, translation. From the mode of goodness, the mind was generated and become manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, and Aswin Kumaras, Ashmin Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in the heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all came into existence. I should read the purport.
Yeah. If you think you need it, if you can explain it, if you already know it, otherwise read it.
Okay. By Karita is the neutral stage of creation, and Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of the darkness of ignorance. Manufacture of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali or in the age of the machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. Such manufacturing enterprises by the human society are in the mode of darkness because factually there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. The human society primarily requires food for subsistence, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are the practical sign of life, as will be explained in the next verse. Human civilization is meant for purifying the senses, and the object of sense satisfaction should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificial sensory needs. Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are all needs of material existence. Otherwise, in its pure, uncontaminated state of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are therefore artificial, and in the pure state of life, there are no such needs. As such, increasing the artificial needs as is the standard of material civilization, or advancing the economic development of human society, is a sort of engagement in the darkness of knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses in order to be engaged in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme possessor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses, Rishikesh. Rishika means the senses, and Isa means master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses, or in the other words, is not directed by the dictations of the senses, but the conditioned souls or the individual living entities are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the direction or dictations of the senses, and therefore material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure this disease of sense gratification, and this can be done simply by becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagements, but they should be purified by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. This is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted first of all to satisfy his own senses by his decision, not to fight with his kinsmen, etc. But Lord Krishna taught him the Bhagavad Gita just to purify Arjuna's decision for sense gratification. Therefore, Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired. The Vedic instructs us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward on the path of light. Tamaso Jyoti Gamaya. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses yoga system, or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord jhana system. And the devotees, however, above the yogis and the jnanis, become because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord only because of the darkness of ignorance. Do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called a jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of the yoga principles, is called a yogi. But when he's fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy his senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. Devotee of the Lord neither try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor they artificially stop the actions of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Then, text 31. By further transformation of the modes of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlets for evacuating, together with the intelligence and living energy, are all generated. The purport. The living condition in material existence depends more or less on one's intelligence and powerful living energy. Intelligence to counteract the hard struggle existence is assisted by the senses for acquiring knowledge, and the living energy is maintained by manipulating the active organs like hands and legs, etc. But on the whole, the struggle for existence is an exertion of the mode of passion. Therefore, all the sense organs, headed by intelligence, and the living energy, prana, are different products and byproducts of the sound modes of nature called passion. This mode of passion is, however, the product of the air element as described before. Can we go ahead to 32?
Yeah, now, so it's quite a complex thing and step by step. How would you summarize it? The transformations of the modes. What's the basic principle of it? How things transform? There's a progression. Anybody answer that? Okay, I'll tell you. It's from the subtle to the gross. That's how things work. The subtle things come first, and then they gradually transform it, and finally the grossest things. So they're detailed, but we need to know these things because we live in the mature world and all these things are happening around us all the time. So we have to see how the modes of nature are working, and they're actually causing everything to happen. Can't blame anyone else. And we can't think I did it, because the modes of nature are actually doing everything. That's a tough one, worth some few extra readings. Name the 14 planetary systems. Who can name any of them? Then we'll read it. All right. Salika, you're always.
Patalaloka, Buluka. There are two of them.
Yeah.
Patalaloka is the lowest. Buluka is what? There are other.
Well, there's 14. So there's lower planets. There's Mahatala, Patala.
Talatalaha.
Then there's higher ones. There's Bhuloka. Then there's higher than that. There's the Swarga. And above that. I can't even get all of them. I'm trying not to say it because I'm waiting for one of you to come up with it.
Satyaloka.
Huh?
Satyaloka.
Yeah, that's the highest one.
That's Brahmaloka. That's Brahmaloka, Satyaloka.
Brahmaloka, Satyaloka, same.
Satyaloka. Tapalaloka, Dhanaloka.
Right. And austerities. Loka for the austere people. Tapaloka. All right, now we'll read the verses and get the whole list in order. We got most of it. There's 3 basic sections, but then there's 14 altogether divisions.
There's a test number.
I think
text
here we
number
start
2.
with just the verses.
Tamara Krishna
39.
Prabhu, you want to read?
Yeah.
Tamara Krishna Prabhu, can you read? It's on the screen. Tamara Krishna Prabhu is there. Who is there?
Yes, I'm here.
Prabhu, can you read?
Okay.
Yajna Prabhu, can you read?
From the forehead of the chest.
We named all of these already.
From the forefront of the chest up to the.
This is comparing how they fit.
I'm inside the way stop me so much. Up to the neck of the universal form.
Somebody's got an outside noise.
Yeah, I think Yajna Prabhu.
I'm ready. You can't get me.
Yeah, because there's a noise in your background, so maybe somebody else you read.
Okay.
Tama Krishna Prabhu, you can still read, or Shitra Prabhu.
Yeah, I'll read.
Okay,
From
go ahead.
the forefront of the chest up to to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Jana Loka and Tapoloka, whereas Satya Loka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Purport.
Okay.
Many times in the pages.
No, we don't.
Many
Let's
times in this.
leave the
Okay.
report for now. So those are the upper planetary systems above Swarga, above the heavenly planets. So that's like where the 4 Kumaras live, and great tapasvis and people that are meditating, but not on Krishna necessarily. But, okay, then 40 and 41 is covering the rest of them.
Okay.
Same. If that was Tamal Krishna, please keep
Can I
going.
continue?
So we have the 3 higher ones, now there's 7 lower ones.
Okay, you can read now. This is the test, and it's on the screen.
Okay. My dear son.
41.
My dear son, Narada, know from me that there are 7 lower planetary systems out of the total 14. The first planetary system, known as Atala, is situated on the waist. The second, Vitala, is situated on the thighs. The third, Sutala, on the knees. The fourth, Talatala, on the shanks. The fifth, Mahatala, on the ankles. The sixth, Rasatala, on the upper portion of the feet. And seventh, Patala, on the soles of the feet. Thus, the various form of the Lord is full of all planetary systems.
So they're the lower planets, but some of them are, it's hard to describe it. Some of them are very opulent. People are living, but they're godless. They're in the legs of the universal form. Okay, I think good to read the purport. Read the purport.
Yeah, Tamal Krishna Prabhu, can you read the purport? Tamal Krishna Prabhu.
If he is not ready, let me continue first.
Okay, continue.
Modern enterprises, the astronauts who travel in space may take information from Srimad Bhagavatam. There are 14 divisions system. The whole planetary system is called
Sitra Prabhu.
Satya Loka.
Sitra Prabhu,
Yes.
your voice is breaking, so we're not hearing you.
Yeah, so someone else read.
Madhvan Prabhu, can you read? If Tamal Krishna Prabhu is not ready. Madhvan Prabhu, can you read?
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Okay, go ahead. You can start
Okay.
from the beginning. Modern enterprise and enterpriser.
Okay. Modern enterpriser, the astronauts who travel in space may take information from Srimad Bhagavatam. That in space, there are 14 divisions of planetary systems. The situation is calculated from the active planetary system, which is called Bhuru Loka. Above Bhuru Loka, there is Bhuva Loka, and the topmost planetary system is called Satya Loka. These are the upper 7 lokas or planetary systems. And similarly, there are 7 lower planetary systems known as Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Maha Atala, Rasa Atala, and Patala lokas. All these planetary systems are scattered over the complete universe, which occupies an area of 2 billion times 2 billion square miles. The modern astronauts can travel only a few thousand miles away from the Earth, and therefore their attempts to travel in the sky is something like child's play on the shore of an expansive ocean. The moon is situated in the Taurus status of the upper planetary system, and in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we shall be able to know the distant situation of the various planets scattered over the vast material sky. There are innumerable universes beyond the one in which we are put, and all these material universes covered only an insignificant portion of the spiritual sky, which is described above as Sanatana Brahma Loka. The Supreme Lord very kindly invites the intelligent human being to return back home, back to Godhead, in the following verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Puna Avatino Rijuna Mam Petya Tukunteya Puna Jamana Vidyate. That's Bhagavad Gita 8:16. The beginning from Satya Loka, the topmost planet of the universe, situated just below the eternal Brahma Loka, as described above. All the planets are material, and one's situation in any of the many material planets is still subjected to the laws of material nature, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. But one can get complete liberation from all above-mentioned material pangs when one enters into the eternal Brahmaloka, Sanatana atmosphere, the kingdom of God. Therefore, liberation as contemplated by the speculative philosopher and the mystics is possible only when one becomes a devotee of the Lord. Anyone who is not a devotee cannot enter into the kingdom of God. Only by enlightenment of service attitude in the transcendental position can one enter into the kingdom of God. Therefore, the speculative philosophers as well as the mystics must first of all be attracted to the devotional cults before they can be factually attain liberation. Can we continue text 42?
No.
Okay.
That's the end of that description, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Maharaj.
So then in the second canto, it's mentioned there's also a list. First chapter, verse 26 to 28. It's probably the same. I have it right here. I'll just read it.
Okay.
What happened there? Oh, yeah. Okay. First, persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala. The ankles are the Mahatala, and his shanks are the Talatala. This should give some idea of how the different planets work. So then it's just repeating the same thing. The universe, 7 planetary systems, Bur, Bhuvar, Swar, Mahar, Janas, Tapas, and Satya. Those are the upper. Bur is where we are. Bhuvar is a little higher. Swargaloka is heavenly planets. Then Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and different degrees of yogis and ascetics. And then Satyaloka, Brahma's planet. And then down, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. But Patala is not necessarily like bad. Where was it that when Bali Maharaj was given a whole planet, one of those talas, and is more opulent than the heavenly planets, and he was living there. But generally, it's materially very opulent, but there's no spiritual life. There's nothing. They're just materialists. And the higher planets are different types of spiritualists. The middle planets where we are is in between, where we still have a choice. We're going to go up or down, depending on how we act. All right. So, getting a lot of scientific knowledge there. Then it has analogies, a lot of them, because trying to understand the whole universe, we need to compare it to things that we can perceive. I think if you just read over these, and if somebody wants to comment, you can. So start, one by one. Salika, you're the host, so you can call on people, a different one by one. Somebody say who will read first and who will read second, so that it moves quick.
Okay, I'll start, and then I think Tamal Krishna will follow after I read, and then Madhuvan Prabhu will follow. So I take the first one.
Good.
Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 1st chapter 5, text number 5. The best example of self-sufficiency is the sun. The sun does not require to be illuminated by any other body. Narada Muni compared the position of Brahma to the self-sufficiency of the spider, who creates his own field of activity without any other help, by employment of his own energetic creation of saliva.
The frog in the well. Logic illustrates that a frog residing in the atmosphere and boundary of the world cannot imagine the length and breadth of the gigantic ocean. Similarly, the material scientists also want to challenge the inconceivable potency of the Lord by measuring him with their godlike brain and their scientific achievement.
So we discussed that a lot, and here's giving it, basically you all said that already.
So,
Okay. Next
Bhagavatam 5:11. Just as the small seed of a banyan fruit has the potency to create a big banyan tree, the Lord disseminates all varieties of seeds by his potential Brahmajyoti, Swaruchisa. And the seeds are made to develop by the watering process of persons like Brahma, just as a gardener helps plants and orchards to grow by the watering process.
Okay.
So you know the story of Narada Muni and the puffed up Brahmin and the shoemaker?
Yes.
Everybody who can tell that story?
Okay.
Somebody can tell it?
Hare
Good.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Yeah, the story of Narada Muni and the cobbler, and I think the second person is a Brahmana.
Yeah.
So, of course, they know that Narada Muni used to visit the spiritual world. So this time around, when he was going, the Brahmana now asking that gave him a message that when he see Krishna, he should ask him if in his next life he's coming back to the spiritual world. So he also made the cobbler also and send him also a similar message. So on getting to the Supreme Lord, the Lord now tells, now Muni put down the questions, and the reply was that it's still going to take time before the Brahmana will come back home. But the cobbler is very sure that in his next life, he's coming back to the spiritual world. So now Ramuni now make inquiry. He said, okay, how will I convince these people when I tell them, because they are not going to believe him. So Lord Krishna now said he should put up a question to them. When they asked him what he was doing when he got to the spiritual world, then he should tell them that he was trying to pass an elephant through the eye of a needle. So I now say that whatever reply they give you, then you know who is more advanced among the two personalities. So when he came back and delivered a message to the Brahmana did not believe when he told him that the Lord was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. So he didn't believe him. He said, actually, maybe he did not even see him. But on getting to the cobbler, the cobbler believed him. And he said that even look, just from a small seed now, a big banyan tree is produced. So there's nothing the Supreme Lord cannot do. So that was the reply, and that was the Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah. So he was saying the example of the tiny seed. If you've seen a banyan tree, the seed is very small, very, very small, but it's the biggest tree. So he was saying that this entire banyan tree is in this tiny little seed. So also the entire Bhagavad Gita is in the seed verses. What are they? What are the seed verses of the Bhagavad Gita?
Chapter 10, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Very good. So, you know, if people don't have time to read the Bhagavad Gita, sometimes it looks too big. You can tell them just read those verses. And one good way to preach is to teach. Preach is teach. If someone says, I don't have time for 16 rounds, can you chant one mantra? Or could you chant, oh yeah, okay, can you chant another one like that? Say, just keep chanting whenever you can. If you don't have time to read the Bhagavad Gita, can you read one sloka? You know, can you read 4 slokas? And you'll get the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita. There's also seed slokas of the Bhagavatam. Do you know who they are? Anybody know, approximately? Somebody?
Come again, Maharaj.
You know where the seed verses of the Bhagavatam are? You want a clue? It's chapter 9 of the 2nd canto. Text 34, something 36. Okay, that's not so important, but they're there, and the same thing. Okay, so make notes of some of these things. Now there's an overview of the whole chapter, and it goes pretty quick. So we didn't read very much. So Chitraputra Prabhu can read that overview. That's verses 1 through 13. You have sound? Yeah.
Krishna Maharaj, checking overview, 13 to 1 to 13. Yes. Now the money question, Lord. Hare Krishna.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Now the money question, Lord Brahma, about the phenomenal world. Its creation and Brahma's own position. When Narada Muni realized that Brahman attained his creative energy through the performance of authorities, and asked Brahman if someone exists who is more powerful than Brahman, and from whom Brahma received his power. Brahma thou explained how the living entities become bewildered about the identity of the Supreme Creator. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So that's pretty clear. Yeah. Maya bewilders us. There's so many powerful people, so many things beyond our reach, and we can't see past them to see Krishna. Very good. We already discussed that quite a bit. So Krishna never had to perform any tapasya to become the Supreme Lord, to do anything. All the demons that become very powerful, Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, they had to do terrible tapasya. Brahma had to do big tapasya to get empowered. And we have to do tapasya also. We can't just, be anything. But what is our tapasya?
devotional service.
And what is devotional service? What do we do then? Devotional service beginning with what?
Austerity.
Chanting.
All right. Yeah, Shravanam Kirtanam. Regular though. Regular chanting. That's our tapasya. Not so difficult, but somehow or other not easy for Kali Yuga people. Those who can do it, Prabhupada promised, if you just keep doing it, you chant 16 rounds, follow the regular principles your whole life, he'll take you back to Godhead. It's very simple. But why so many people can't do it? Even people who take initiation and start, they can't always keep it up. And why is that? Any comments? If we lose track of the goal, then we won't keep doing it. If we're not making a connection with Krishna, giving ourselves to Krishna, so he's giving himself to us, we won't feel that pleasure of the loving exchanges, and then we'll go look for pleasure somewhere else. The Maya is always trying to distract us. All right, it's a very quick summary of 14 to 31. Infinix, note, you have sound today? At Kamalaksha?
I think Kamalaksha Prabhu and they are having some Harinam program today, so probably maybe that's why Kamalaksha is not here. But Jyotish Arup, I don't know why he's not here.
Somebody's there. Who's Infinix note?
That's Rasavan Prabhu. Infinix
Okay,
note 8.
Rasavan, go for it.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah, you raise your hand.
Yes. Do you want me to read something?
Yeah, read this summary. That's a short one.
The summary of
14 to 31. Actually, you can read both. The next.
Yeah,
okay.
It's on the screen. It's on your screen. Verses 14 to 31 and 32 to 45.
Okay. Lord Brahma explained that the Narayana is the Supreme Lord. Lord Brahma I'm not getting it. This is not happened.
Okay, let me.
I've seen it.
Okay.
Lord Brahma explained how the material world manifests.
Your voice is off. We're no longer hearing you. Okay, Tamara Krishna Prabhu, you want to read? Go ahead.
Lord Brahma explained that Lord Narayan is the Supreme Lord. Lord Brahman explained how the material world manifests in perpetual reactions from Maha Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Read the second one also.
Okay. Lord Brahma explained how the Lord
in perpetual reaction from Maha.
as Jabodakasya Vishnu to emanate the creation and to assume the universal form on which the 14 planetary systems are situated. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah. Okay.
Maharaj, I think you asked a question about the Srimad Bhagavatam Chatusloki verses. I think it's this same second canto, chapter 9, text 33 to 36.
Right.
33, 34, 35, and 36.
Right. And they're very wonderful verses. And again, you know, the whole Bhagavatam is quite a daunting thing to tell someone we should read that whole book, right? But if we get a taste for these by reading these 4 verses, which have some of them, one of them has a really long purport, then we'll get more inspired to want to read the whole thing. And if we read 40 pages a day, 42 pages, 41 pages, you can read the whole Bhagavatam in 1 year. Or if you read 50 verses. But that requires a lot of discipline. Every day you have to read it, sometimes 2 hours to finish it. But to read the 4 verses, 1 verse at a time, 1 verse a day or 1 verse a week, we can get so much knowledge. And the whole Bhagavatam will explode into our lives. Discussion topics. Now we've gone over most of that. But we didn't discuss this one. The Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender. And that's a very, very important. That's verse number 17. Huh? Who can read that, verse 17?
It says that inspired by him only, let me put on the screen for everyone. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayan, under his vision as the all-pervading super soul. And I also am created by him only. Purport. Even Brahma, the creator of the universe, admits that he is not the actual creator, but is simply inspired by the Lord Narayan. And therefore creates on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and therefore creates under his superintendence those things already created by him. The super soul of all living entities, 2 identities of souls, the super soul and the individual soul, are admitted to be in the living entity. Even by the greatest authority of the universe, the super soul is the supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, whereas the individual soul is the eternal servitor of the Lord. The Lord inspires the individual soul to create what is already created by the Lord. And by the goodwill of the Lord, a discoverer of something in the world is accredited as a discoverer. It is said that Columbus discovered the Western Hemisphere, but actually the tract of land was not created by Columbus. The vast tract of land was already there by the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord. And Columbus, by dint of his past service unto the Lord, was blessed with the credit of discovering America. Similarly, no one can create anything without the sanction of the Lord. Since everyone seeks according to his ability, the ability is also awarded by the Lord. One must therefore be voluntarily willing to render service unto the Lord, and thus the Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord. Therefore, he has been empowered or inspired by the Lord to create such a universe as the one manifested before us. The Lord also inspired Arjuna to fight in the field of Kurukshetra as follows. Tasmastam utistayaso labhasyaha jitva satrum bhuksva rajyam samridaham maya vaite nihaita purvam evaha nimita matram bhava asavya asashin. Bhagavad Gita 11:33. The battlefield of Kurukshetra or any other battle at any place or at any time is made by the will of the Lord, for no one can arrange such mass annihilation without the sanction of the Lord. The party of Duryodhana insulted Draupadi, a great devotee of Krishna, and she appealed to the Lord, as well as to all the silent observers of this unwarranted insult. Arjuna was then advised by the Lord to fight and take credit. Otherwise, the party of Duryodhana would be killed anyway by the will of the Lord. So Arjuna was advised just to become the great agent and take the credit for killing great generals like Bhishma and Karna. In the Vedic writings, such as the Katha Upanishad, the Lord is described as Sarva Bhuta and Antaratma, or this personality of God who resides in everyone's body and who directs everything, for one who is a soul surrendered unto him. Those who are not surrendered souls are put under the care of the material nature. Brahmanya Sarva Bhutani, Yantra Rudani, Mayaya. Therefore, they are allowed to do things on their own they are allowed to do things on their own account and suffer the consequences themselves. Devotees of Lord Brahma and Arjuna do not, devotees of Lord Brahma, devotees like Lord Brahma and Arjuna do not do anything on their own account, but as fully surrendered souls, they always await indications from the Lord. Therefore, they attempt to do something which appears very wonderful to ordinary vision. One of the Lord's names is Urukrama, or one whose actions are very wonderful and are beyond the imagination of the living being. So the actions of the devotees sometimes appear very wonderful due to the direction of the Lord, beginning from Brahma, the topmost intelligent living entity within the universe, down to the smallest ant. Every living entity's intelligence is overseen by the Lord in his transcendental position as the witness of all actions. The subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study the physics, effect of thinking, feeling, and willing. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So this is a good one to end up on, and let's hear comments from a little bit from everybody. Something from the Bhagavad Gita that says this, famous verse, chapter 4. Give me your hand. You got it. You got the first word. What is it? Yayatamam.
Prapadyantim. Yayatamam Prapade. Tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Mama manu vatunte. Manichi apata sarvasa.
Translation?
As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respect. O son of Prita.
What? Again?
Again,
Yeah, you said it so fast, I didn't catch it. What's the translation?
as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. O son of Prita.
All right, you get what you give, right? That's the law of karma. So there's something very serious point to understand. If things aren't going well for us, it may be because we're not trusting Krishna, we're not depending on Krishna, we're thinking, I can do it myself. I have intelligence, I have position, I have influence, whatever we might think. Maya is very tricky. And how did Prabhupada express this concept?
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada used the example of Columbus discovering the hemisphere.
Yeah, what was that?
America.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, America was already there. What did Prabhupada say about his own accomplishments? What did he say was his credit?
That the only credit he has is that he followed the order of his spiritual master.
Right. So in other words, he's giving all credit that he wasn't really doing anything. Because he followed the spiritual master, Krishna was pleased with him. And then Krishna gave him, so much help to get things done. He saw all the devotees that came as being sent by his spiritual master to help him because Krishna knew that he couldn't do it himself. So,
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
yes, sir. Today's Father's Day. Are all of you fathers?
Happy Father's Day to you, Maharaj.
Yeah. Are your children treating you properly?
They are trying, Maharaj.
No, I say, are the children treating you properly?
They are not feeding me, but they are taking care of my business now. They are both partners.
They'll follow your example. We see some stories, because now they have all these messages that come on the internet. And the child is talking bad words and nasty, and the teacher reports to the father, and the father starts to chastise the son, and, where did you learn this? And the child says, I learned from you, Father. Don't you remember how you were shouting at my mother this morning? And he just repeating what he heard. So new devotees also, they're going to follow our example. But the more we just really have faith, Lord Brahma, or Krishna says to Lord Brahma after the Govinda prayers, your realization depends on faith. as much as we really have faith in the spiritual master and trust, then trust in the spiritual master and the spirit and the scripture, then Krishna can reveal everything to us and give us everything. But we have to be patient. Also, things come in Krishna's time. The more you try to teach this Bhagavatam, what you've learned, the more you share it, however you can, the more we get it. So thank you all very much for this endeavor and tolerance. We managed to read a lot of Bhagavatam again and again, and we may not remember it. If you just sit down and try to remember, it's very difficult. If you start preaching, it'll come out automatically. It's nowadays in psychiatry, they'll say the subconscious. The subconscious is the super soul. So the super soul knows everything we've done. He knows every mantra you've chanted. He knows every, nonsense we've done also. But if we're trying, he'll overlook the nonsense things. So it'll come out. This is how to make, the best way to learn something. I think Bhakti Maharaj would mention this quite often. He gave the statistics, if you just read it, if you just hear it, you remember so much percent. If you read it and hear it at the same time, you remember more, and different things. And when you teach it, that's when you remember the most. When you want to share it with someone else, and Super Soul will give it to you. It's there, never lost. So let's finish up for today. It's Father's Day and Sunday. You might have your Sunday program now. And I see a lot of these Harinam and food distribution, which is very wonderful. And I know there's a few books being distributed, so please note that also. Don't worry that it's only a few books. Krishna is happy with just one. Don't think we didn't do big, so I don't want to report it. Because we can never do really big. Somebody's doing 1,000 books a day or 500. Somebody's doing one. Krishna appreciates the effort. And then pray and try to think of ways to distribute more books. Along with Food for Life, the type of people that are getting the Food for Life, a lot of them can't even read. So it has to be a separate endeavor. But Krishna will help. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Hare. Gauranga. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Father's Day, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
So, Prabhu, now our time means it will continue like this, or?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends. It depends on Maharaj.
Okay.
It moves up and down.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna will help us to be able to follow.
Yes. For sure.